So when you say to me, Ed, what do we want from them? We want fairness. We don't want them to kill American workers by inundating us with this non-tariff cheating. And it would be really refreshing to have the media talk more about that. This zero tariff thing, it's a misdirection. No, it's a misdirection. It's the non-tariff barriers.
What that suggests is that there's going to be a lot bigger challenge in terms of actually then getting to yes, if you will, or finding the off-ramp where a deal is made, given that we're not just talking about getting to zero, we're talking about getting all sorts of other policies inside each of these countries changed. Yeah. My related question, I don't know, maybe they're unrelated, related, is you have talked a lot about how tariffs, and the president's talked a lot about how tariffs can be helpful as a tax, effectively, as a way to raise revenue here in the United States.
Tariffs are tariffs, and they do raise revenues. They will. I see them as a tax cut, Andrew, because they're going to help pay for the biggest tax cut in American history. Every dollar that we extract from foreigners who are cheating us is going to go to the American public in the form of debt reduction and tax cuts, including, for example, in our auto industry. Anybody who buys an American-made car is going to get a healthy tax cut. We were given $7,500 away for EVs made partly in China. That's crazy. If Donald Trump gives away money for American-made cars made in Akron and Flint and Detroit, that's gets our manufacturing base back.
Just stick with me, though, for a second.
Sure.
Either we can collect those revenues, and by the way, there's other people who think it'll be a tax on the American people, but let's just put that aside and assume that you can collect revenues. Either you're collecting revenues, and that's the goal, or you're negotiating with these countries to get to not just zero, it sounds like, anymore, but something very different than that. But those two goals seem to be at odds with each other.
Not if you look at it as a movie rather than a snapshot, Andrew. The goal here, ultimately, is to have people make things here. Remember, the president has said early and often...
But again, if that's the goal...
Let me finish the thought. Andrew,
Sorry.
Why are you interrupting?
Okay.
Let me just finish the thought. The president has said early and often that the best way to avoid tariffs is to just come here and produce. I mean, if you look at our auto industry, right, we're an assembly line for German engines and transmissions right now. That just doesn't make any sense. In World War II, we won that war with our so-called arsenal of democracy. We can't do that anymore. We've got parts all spread all around the globe, and if COVID taught us anything, those supply chains are not resilient. They're not reliable. So I take your point, but I'll tell you, we're going to get to a place where America makes stuff again. Real wages are going to be up. Profits are going to be up. And look, it bewilders me right now in the sense that if you're just looking at this chessboard, it's the market's going to find a bottom. Time to layer in. And if you look at all the good things that President Trump is going to bring you in terms of tax cuts, deregulation, lower energy prices, lower interest rates, and the world restructuring in a way which is going to be healthy. I mean, how many conversations have we had about China moving from an export-dependent parasite on the world to an economy that actually serves its own people rather than keeps
Peter, you talked about tax cuts. Do you know anything about letting the top marginal rate go? Are you a proponent of letting that go from 37 back above 39.6 to try to pay for some of this other stuff? Because you know how many small to medium-sized corporations pay taxes at those rates if they're
Joe, that one's not my lane. I let Scotty
you just said we're going to cut taxes. That's not
investment.
You add all this together.
No tax on tips.
And it's not
no tax on overtime. No tax on Social Security. Tax breaks for if you buy a domestic auto.
But if you raise the top rate, that's not a Republican or a conservative
You're asking the wrong guy.
Whose idea was that? So the tariffs are all your. So you own the tariffs, then?
Joe,
I don't know if I'd want to know that.
You're going after me for something that I'm not involved in. I can talk tariffs till the cows come home. Hey, Becky, how are you?
Let's talk a little more about the tariffs, because this idea of who's getting hurt immediately. Oil prices, oil's fungible. They can go elsewhere to buy oil. Things like soybeans, corn, wheat, that could be picked up from other markets too. Brazil is very happy to step in and supply some of those things. Farmers here are already getting hurt, already asking for relief like they got under the first Trump administration. If we are raising these tariffs, taking that money and simply turning around and paying the people who are getting hurt with it, how does that benefit the economy, particularly if it leads to a downturn in the economy that costs people jobs?
Because, Becky, it brings home our domestic manufacturing. I mean, that should be patently obvious to you. That's the whole point.
That takes
we
years.
Bring here.
Are we asking people to be patient for years?
That's another one of the debates. How long will this take? Brian of the UAW stands up on Liberation Day, almost steals the show from the boss, and he says he's lived through this whole thing. He watched the factories go away. And now he knows that the factories are underutilized. There's brownfield investment that can be made in auto parts factories that are still there. And it won't take long.
Even brownfield will take 18 months to 2 to 3 years, I think, Peter. That's the question. That's a long time to get things back up and running.
I remember what I did working in the pandemic, and we were looking at PPE, N95 masks that were going to take 6 months to get factories done. You know, we did it in 2 months. GM got us ventilators in 14 days. So don't tell me that America doesn't have the wherewithal to move things. We can do stuff. But look, the big picture here. Let's not lose sight of the big picture. We got a $1.2 trillion trade deficit this year. We have since the trade war began, when the world declared war on us back in 1979, we've accumulated $18 trillion of money we've had to transfer into foreign hands. That's about 2/3 of an annual GDP. That is totally unsustainable. And what we need to be able to do is stop that for our national security, our economic security. And the way to do that is to get our manufacturing back, and that's what we're all about. And let's understand the problem. They charge us systematically higher tariffs, but the bigger problem is the non-tariff cheating. It's just that's Peter, the world lives on that. They suck our blood on that.